Hello, I'm Mrs. Fuller with Chaos in the Class. Today I'm going to talk to you about something about remembering 9/11. George Santayana, a Spanish philosopher, said, "Those who don't know history are destined to repeat it." Winston Churchill paraphrased this when he was talking to the House of Commons. I think it's really important that we study history. We look back over it, even if it's difficult. And this is pretty difficult for me to even talk about today. Before we talk about remembering 9/11, what are the symbols of America? The symbols of America are the American flag, Statue of Liberty, famous statue depicting the battle at Iwo Jima and our soldiers raising the flag, our bald eagle, the White House, the Pentagon, the Twin Towers. So for 9/11, for me, it was something that I lived through that day. It was a normal day. Woke up that morning, kissed and hugged my own children and my family. We all went to our schools. I remembered that President Bush was visiting an elementary school. I thought, that's pretty cool. Business was as usual. People were at work. Planes were in the air. And then there's some unexpected events that happened. No one was aware of the events that were unfolding. So let's look back at the timeline of how that day played out in history. On September 11, 2001, 4 planes were hijacked by 19 terrorists and flown into the World Trade Center, Twin Towers, and the Pentagon. The 4th plane was headed to Washington, D.C. At 8:46 a.m., hijackers from terrorist group Al-Qaeda deliberately crashed American Airlines Flight 11 that had taken off from Boston into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. No one knew at the time that the U.S. was under attack, as first responders of firefighters, police, and medical personnel raced to the World Trade Center. News crews began setting up and filming the crash. The World Trade Center was an icon for the financial district. At 9:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175 that had taken off from Boston hit the South Tower of the World Trade Center. At 9:05 a.m., President George W. Bush is informed of the situation unfolding while he is visiting an elementary school in Florida. 9:31 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon. The Pentagon is the headquarters for the U.S. Department of Defense. At 9:42 a.m., the Federal Aviation Administration, known as the FAA, grounded all flights, ordering them to land at the nearest airport. Meanwhile, the passengers on United Airlines Flight 93 are getting reports and using their phones and get news of the other planes. The passengers and crew from United 93 confront the hijackers as the plane is nearing Washington, D.C., and the plane crashes at 10:30 a.m. in Pennsylvania. It is believed that plane was headed for the White House. 11:45 a.m., President Bush is taken to Barksdale Air Force Base. 12:16, U.S. airspace is officially closed, with an estimated 4,500 planes that had been in the air and now landing at the nearest airport, stranding passengers. At 8:30 p.m., President George Bush addresses the nation. The search is underway for those who are behind these evil acts. I've directed the full resources of our intelligence and law enforcement communities to find those responsible and to bring them to justice. We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them. And there are more excerpts from President George Bush's speech. When I was trying to put this together, it was very much of a struggle for me because I lived through it that day. I had family members that were flying that day in the air for business. And when I was looking for ways to explain this to my family, young family members that are now alive, to fellow teachers who were looking for something for their school districts, I came across President George Bush's speech, and he really put it best, explaining the day. So let's take a look at some of the excerpts from his speech. The pictures of planes flying into buildings, fires burning, huge structures collapsing have filled us with disbelief, terrible sadness, and a quiet, unyielding anger. These acts were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat, but they have failed. Our country is strong. A great number of people has been moved to defend a great nation. Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. America was targeted for attack because we're the brightest beacon for freedom and opportunity in the world, and no one will keep that light from shining. Today, our nation saw evil, the very worst of human nature, and we responded with the best of America, with the daring of our rescue workers, with the caring for strangers and neighbors who came to give blood and help out in any way they could. This is a day when all Americans from every walk of life unite in our resolve for justice and for peace. America has stood down enemies before, and we will do so this time. None of us will ever forget this day, yet we go forward to defend freedom and all that is good and just in our world. In the days afterward, there were changes to security measures in schools and in the airline industry. Many people and students decided that they wanted to enlist in the military. There were artists that depicted 9/11 in music and in artwork. Americans seemed to bond together, and our American spirit would not be crushed. Freedom as an American means we are free to worship our religion, attend school, have the right to bear arms, and have the right to security. Freedom is not free. We are all responsible for our American freedom. This is our America. I took pictures at the 9/11 Memorial in Grapevine, Texas. You can see the flight crew is pictured here, and kneeling is a police officer. That piece of steel is from the World Trade Center. The stone is from the Pentagon. It's limestone. These stones are from the crash site in Pennsylvania. And this statue is of a fireman that is kneeling. Today we remember those that lost their lives that day. As we pause to remember them, we stand grateful for those that continue to protect us. America belongs to all of us. I'm Brenda Fuller from Chaos in the Class.